Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's great to see so many of you here. So let's get going. First, some logistics. This is a 30-minute webinar. Your microphones will be muted throughout. You can use the question tab to type questions at any time. I'll answer as many questions as possible at the end and via email afterwards. The video and slides will be available for download tomorrow. I hope you enjoy the session. Hi, I'm Simon Neefsey. I'm the founder of the scrummaster.co.uk. I'm a Scrum.org professional Scrum trainer. I'm on a mission to simplify Scrum and Agile for 1 million people. I've taught 25,000 people so far, and my clients include Google, NASA, the United Nations, Amazon, Toyota, and Microsoft. So, who reads or used to read the Metro newspaper? I'm going to tell you a story of how a risky assumption nearly cost Metro £1 million. Many years ago, I worked for Metro and was the lead developer tasked with building the first metro.co.uk website. This was in the early 2000s when the internet was relatively new and the digital world was very different. It was apparent to those of us with a digital outlook on the world that the days of print newspapers were numbered, and that for Metro to survive, having a successful website would be essential. However, management at Metro didn't agree. They didn't like or care about the internet or websites. They saw them as a threat to their print newspaper business. However, leadership at the parent company insisted on having the website, and the management team at Metro had to deliver it. Management at Metro did not want to spare a senior or expensive team member to help us understand what to build, so they delegated responsibility to David, not his real name. David was a well-meaning but inexperienced junior editor who worked on special features at the newspaper. Think wild and wacky stories, usually animal-related, that give people a break from heavier news. David was fascinated by squirrels. Now, one day, David announced he'd devised a great feature for our new website. We would create a squirrel game, where a squirrel would randomly appear when people visited a web page for a few seconds. If you clicked on the squirrel before it disappeared, you'd be entered into a prize draw. He was convinced that this was a winning idea and would generate significant interest in the new website. I had my doubts. We quickly realised that building the squirrel game would be expensive and time-consuming. We urged David to drop or at least deprioritise the work so we could focus on other more valuable things that were required to launch the new website. David insisted that the squirrel game was the most important job we would do, so we should do it first. He was the empowered decision maker, so we had to do as we were told. As a result, a highly paid developer spent 3 months working on the squirrel game. David was delighted with the game when the new website went live. Visitors to the website were not so keen though, and we received many complaints regarding the game over the first few days. Many people found it distracting. I'm here to read the news and this squirrel keeps appearing. How can I turn this thing off? Was the recurring theme of the feedback. A major advertiser saw the squirrel and threatened to cancel a £1 million contract. At the same time, the newspaper's editor, David's boss, saw the squirrel, hated it, and insisted it was turned off immediately. As I flicked the switch to disable it, I wish we hadn't built it in the first place. David was so sure that the squirrel game was a winner that he couldn't see it was an assumption about value, which turned out to be incorrect. Money and time were wasted, and visitors to the website had a negative experience. Assumptions about value happen all the time. When the cost and risk are high, we should test those assumptions to decide if the investment is worth it. So now, I have a few questions for you. My first question is, have you ever been involved in creating a product or feature that did not get the anticipated usage? Be honest, and you can add a yes or no to the chat. I'll give you a moment to do that. Now, usually when I ask this question, we get a bunch of yeses coming up. I'm going to proceed. I have another question for you. My next question is, who decided to build that product or feature? You can add an anonymized answer via the chat. It could have been you, your boss, a product manager, a customer, or somebody else. I'll give you a moment to add some responses in there as well. So these ideas, they can come from lots of different sources. I'm seeing some examples flashing up on the screen there. David and his squirrel were not unique. Building things that no one will use happens all of the time. Even though we're all aware of it, we still do it. Bringing a new product to life is exciting, but how can you be sure that there's real demand before investing significant time and money? I want to share a personal story with you about how I, who've been teaching people about this stuff for 15 years, still fell into the just build it trap recently when the excitement of a new idea blinded me to the associated risks. Along the way, I hope you'll learn a little about how to validate assumptions, run low-cost experiments, and make smarter product decisions, ensuring you build something that people really want. So here is my story. But first, a little background and context for you. The Online Safety Act 2023 is legislation that's been enacted by the UK government to regulate online content and ensure the safety of users on digital platforms. It introduces new legal responsibilities for online businesses to protect users, especially children, from harmful content. The Act establishes a duty of care for online platforms, requiring them to act against illegal content or material that could harm children. Platforms failing to meet these duties may face fines of up to £18 million or 10% of their annual turnover, whichever is higher. The Act also empowers Ofcom, the UK's communications regulator, to block access to particular websites if necessary. The Act is aimed primarily at large organisations like Facebook, X and Google. However, the Act also applies to small businesses operating online and requires significant actions to comply and stay within the law. All online businesses need to carry out risk assessments and document the results. They must monitor and remove illegal content. Those likely accessed by children must also implement age verification checks. Staying informed about the latest developments in online safety regulations is crucial for businesses to ensure compliance and protect their users. Reading about the Online Safety Act made me realise that small businesses would have significant challenges in gaining and maintaining compliance. Every small business operating online with users in the UK would need to take immediate action. Although many would likely be compliant by default, they still needed to conduct risk assessments, decide whether further action was required, and document the results. They may face increased costs for compliance, such as investing in content moderation, legal support, and training. Whilst Ofcom had provided guidance and tools to support this, learning about the legislation and carrying out the mandatory actions would be time-consuming. The risk of getting it wrong is also significant, and such errors could lead to big issues should Ofcom investigate in future. As this new legislation was moving through Parliament, I heard many stories about people worried about this. Small community websites would have to take action, and some who lacked the resources to do so had already opted to close their services due to the incoming new rules. My website, thescrummaster.co.uk, includes comments, reviews, and a community area, so I also had to take action. I could sense a problem that many might share that needed a solution. So my solution and new business idea was to assist small businesses in handling the challenges of complying with the Online Safety Act. Here's the elevator pitch that I wrote for the idea. The UK Online Safety Act introduces legal responsibilities for online businesses. Organisations failing to meet these duties can face fines of up to £18 million or 10% of their annual turnover. To prevent such penalties, all businesses supplying online services to UK users must conduct a risk assessment. OnlineSafetyAct.uk will remove this risk for your small business. We will carry out the risk assessment, advise on any required actions, and document the result to ensure you fully comply with the legislation. So excited by the prospect of developing a new product, I immediately started to plan the solution we would use to provide the service. It would take about 4 weeks to build the beta version of the service. I quickly then rolled up my sleeves and dived into building the solution. I created a PHP website with a form plugin to gather the required data. I created a Python project with logic rules to assess the responses and filter them as compliant, not compliant, or requiring further checks. I wrote some code to populate a document template with the risk assessment results, and then I stopped. I realized I was potentially wasting my time. I could see a problem and I knew I could create a solution, but how could I be sure others perceived the same problem and be willing to pay for my solution? It seemed obvious to me that they would, but if I was wrong, I would have wasted 4 weeks. I've been teaching people about product discovery for years, but I had still almost fallen into the just build it trap. Instead, I needed to use the truth curve to limit the potential risk around this new product idea. The truth curve from Gift Constable is a concept that helps product development teams balance experimentation with investment. It highlights the relationship between the cost of obtaining evidence and the reliability of that evidence. Early on, teams should focus on low-cost experiments to gather insights. These small tests provide quick feedback while minimizing the financial risk of investing too much in building the wrong thing. As confidence in an area grows, investment should increase gradually, allowing for more thorough validation and refinement. The key is to strike a balance, ensuring that the cost of gathering additional evidence is justified by its value in reducing uncertainty. By following this approach, we can make better informed decisions, minimize waste, and improve the chances of building successful products. I realised that OnlineSafetyAct.uk was on the far left of the truth curve. I had potentially risky assumptions about the problem and the market for a solution. Rather than just build it, I needed to use the truth curve to test those assumptions and limit potential waste. Running experiments to validate assumptions around potential new products and features is important because it provides empirical evidence about their viability before committing significant resources. Experiments allow for testing hypotheses in a controlled manner, helping to identify whether a feature genuinely addresses user needs and delivers value. Experiments don't have to be products. They are low investment opportunities to test hypotheses. Here are some examples of experiment types that you can use. Interviews. By interviewing potential users and asking open-ended questions, observing reactions, and delving into experiences, we can collect qualitative data, highlighting a feature's relevance and possible value. A pre-order page is a web page that enables potential customers to place orders for a product before it's officially released or available for sale. This strategy helps companies gauge market interest before committing to full-scale development. A simple landing page on a website can achieve something similar without requiring a purchase. Feature fake experiments give the illusion of a fully functional feature with a button or link on a website or in an app. When the user clicks the button or link, they receive a message informing them that the feature does not yet exist and advising them how to complete the desired action without it. The concierge minimal viable product is where a manual high-touch service is provided to the initial set of users to validate the product idea without building a fully automated solution. This approach involves personalizing the service for each user to gain deep insights into their needs, preferences, and behaviors. The goal is to test and validate the core assumptions of the product concept with minimal development effort. Next, the Wizard of Oz experiment is a technique used to simulate the functionality of a product or feature without fully implementing it. It looks and feels like a functioning product to the user, but it's primarily humans doing the work behind the scenes. Imagine a team working on a voice-activated virtual assistant for home automation. They create a facade that gives the appearance of a working voice-activated assistant, but behind the scenes, a team member acts as the wizard and manually responds to user commands. Indeed, Amazon used the Wizard of Oz approach extensively to develop its Alexa smart speaker technology. Now, of course, not everything needs an experiment. Some things are too risky, will not be valuable enough, and should generally be avoided, i.e. don't build it. Some things are high value and low risk, so experimentation is unnecessary and we should just build the solution. Most new features and products sit on a spectrum between those two extremes. The skill needed is to decide when to experiment and how much to invest at each stage. The truth curve guides us on how much to invest. Meanwhile, the hypotheses prioritization canvas can be used as a simple visual aid to help us understand when to experiment. We should focus on experimentation, learning, and discovery activities where potential risk and value are high. This is where we can reduce waste by testing assumptions before committing to building a complete solution. So with a new focus, I designed and carried out an experiment to learn more about the problem and potential market for OnlineSafetyAct.uk. I decided that rather than build the whole solution, I would create a landing page to gauge potential interest in my new product. I made a page that provided details on the Online Safety Act, detailed the problem for small businesses, and my proposed solution. The web page offered a small incentive for interested people to provide an email address. Next, I created a Google Ads campaign to ensure enough potential customers would reach the page to run the experiment. I carefully selected the keywords I would use, set a daily budget, and limited the campaign to 2 weeks to control costs. My hypothesis was that if I received 10 email addresses by the end of the campaign, it would be the signal I needed to proceed further with my plans. I could then follow up with the interested people and gain further evidence by helping them achieve compliance using semi-automated methods before proceeding to build a full solution. So what happened? Well, the result was unexpected and disappointing. In the 2 weeks the Google ad campaign ran, it received 3,764 ad impressions, 1,043 clicks through to the landing page, and 1 conversion, which eventually turned out to be spam. Either the experiment was flawed or my product was not deemed valuable enough. There's some further possibilities related to that as well. The Google Ads campaign may not have been effective. Perhaps the landing page didn't communicate the solution well enough. Perhaps businesses didn't understand or care about the problem. We may have been too early for the market. Or perhaps businesses didn't want to use or pay for my solution. Maybe they would prefer to do this all themselves. All of those options could be valid. I suspect that even if I fixed the ads and the landing page, I'd still hit issues with understanding and willingness to pay. These couldn't be solved without significant marketing spend. At this stage, that wasn't something I was prepared to do. My conclusion, therefore, was that my great product idea was not actually so great. While disappointing that things didn't turn out as I hoped, I'm grateful I paused, stepped back, and used the truth curve. Had I not done so, I'd have wasted 4 weeks building something that no one would have used. At least I managed to avoid the just build it trap. So what comes next? Well, I still have a nagging desire to do more with the product concept, but I'm going to wait and let it settle for now. I suspect that once the legislation starts being enforced and there are stories in the news about companies facing penalties for non-compliance, there'll be increased interest in services that help eliminate that risk. At that point, I may run another experiment to test interest levels again. While the experiment failed and my assumptions were wrong, I still got some benefits from all of this. The 4 weeks I saved by not building the product meant a significant opportunity cost saving. I instead used the time to do other work that has provided a return on the investment instead. I added a webinar capability to the scrummaster.co.uk and created this talk. I also took the time to learn how to use Google Ads, which is something I'd wanted to do for many years. Although I dabbled with it in the past, I never felt I understood it fully. And using it for real in a controlled and limited way has helped me use it more confidently. I'll now be able to create and run ad campaigns for my other products in the future. I also created the landing page, which I can repurpose for future initiatives. The WordPress website that it sits on will also allow me to experiment quickly with new product ideas in future. The creators of the Agile Manifesto were aware of all of this and made it one of their key principles back in 2001. Building products and features is expensive. There are always more ideas for features than resources to build them. This is true in every organisation I've worked in throughout my career. Balancing supply and demand is challenging, and any opportunity to reduce waste in this area should be seized. Product discovery and validation are critical to test assumptions. Ride the truth curve, run experiments, and test your riskiest assumptions. So thank you for listening. Let's see how we're doing for time. We can take a few questions if there are any in the chat window. Let me have a look, or in the question window. Let me see. One question I can see is, how long did you spend creating the experiment? Well, the experiment really comprised of creating the landing page, and that probably took 2 or 3 days, something in that range. And the second biggest element of it was setting up the Google Ads campaign, and that was probably another day or 2 to get that up and running. So probably about 4 days in total to create the experiment. So, an investment of time, but 4 days is better than 4 weeks. And because it was my first time with all of this, it took longer than it will next time. So I'd imagine next time round when I do this, it would be a matter of hours to kind of set up the same kind of scenario for a different product. I have another question, which is, how did you learn Google Ads? Well, I read a book about Google Ads some years ago, which kind of introduced me to it and helped me understand some of the fundamentals. But my top tip really to get going with it is to create an account and create a campaign. Limit your budget so you don't spend huge amounts of money, but really dive into it and learn how it works by creating a campaign and using it. That was really what helped me, and it's the only way that you can really tease out the subtleties and understand what it's all about. Okay, I'm going to step on. So, thank you for coming along. I hope the talk was valuable. You can access the recorded video and slide deck using the QR code or the URL on screen. The files will be uploaded tomorrow. They should be up there tomorrow morning. And finally, a sneak preview of my next product, the Ultimate Agile Masterclass. The Ultimate Agile Masterclass has been created for experienced Agile practitioners who want to master agility. It's the most comprehensive Agile training course ever created. It combines self-paced and cohort-based learning with ongoing live support from expert trainers. The masterclass runs over 12 months with around 5 hours of study time each month. You can use the second link or QR code on the screen to learn more about this. The talk is now complete. Thank you for listening. Thank you for coming along. I hope you'll join in next time when I run another webinar, whenever that might be. Thank you very much. Goodbye.